The music industry and business is a fairly complicated concept that's pretty misunderstood by the general public. Normally, there's so many different parts that go into the final product of the music that's being made and released that a lot of people don't bother looking into it, but many people are a lot more interested than we're giving them credit for. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of reliable resources in terms of information and accurate information in the music industry unless you're going for a degree in the subject. So, today I'm just going to give you a fairly basic and introductory way of describing the music industry to you or to anyone else that may be interested. So there's three parts to the industry in general. First of all, there's the originality and the creation of the music itself. Second of all, there's the copyright law that comes after you make the music or after the music is taken. And third of all, there's the advertising and marketing of the product to the general public or to whoever you're trying to advertise to. Firstly, the originality and creation of the music itself is a fairly straightforward concept. It's really just somebody that is wanting to make music. Anything. It could be about anything, it could be for anything, it could be for any purpose. The kicker is that many people tend to take ideas from others and take it for themselves, for their own gain, for their own music, for their own product, and it turns out that they're not actually making their own music, and therefore the originality factor is not present. The creativity and the creation of the music itself comes down to the artist, obviously. The artist has all creative discretion and is a completely personal process on how they want to go about making their music. Of course, there's many other factors that go into that, and generally that comes with the record label that the artist may or may not be signed to. As stated on a Penn State study on an essay, it said that most labels micromanage their artists to squeeze the most amount of money out of them and their music as possible, and therefore the artist becomes something that's called micromanaged. They're told what to write, they're told how to write, they're told who to write about, and they're told who to write with. Because of this, sales tend to go up, but the originality factor goes down, and therefore most music sounds very similar in the present day in the pop industry because the label is trying to make music that people want to listen to. And the general success of the music industry and the originality of the music industry as a result of that has declined over the past decade. Now, when we're talking about originality, there's also plagiarism. There's also taking the originality, taking the product, taking the idea of someone else. It's present in every single industry in the world. But it's extremely prevalent in the entertainment industry, especially in the music industry. And that brings me into my next point, which is copyright law in the music industry. Now, copyright law is essentially just a fancy way of saying there's a way for your music to not get stolen legally, and if it is, for you to be able to take legal steps. According to the Music Industry Survival Manual from TuneCore, written by George Howard, there are 6 ways of copywriting that are automatic when you've written something. And that means that they're automatically going to be entitled to you whether it's written on a napkin or whether it's on your iPhone or whether it's recorded in a studio. And those are public display, which essentially protects you from the display of your product anywhere besides for yourself until you've released it. There's reproduction, which means nobody can recreate it. There's derivatives, which means nobody can make something that sounds extremely similar or use the same ideology. There's digital reproduction, which means, or digital display, which means that somebody's going to record you without you knowing it and display it to the public. There's public performance, which means somebody's going to take your song and perform it to the public without your permission. And there's distribution, which means somebody is going to give you, or somebody is going to take your product and distribute it to people without you knowing or without you wanting to. This causes a lot of issues, obviously. Technically, because you're entitled to those 6 copyright laws, you are liable to a lawsuit if any of those things happen, but it's not common that they actually do, and it's not common they go through. Lastly, this brings me to my advertising point. There was an article in the New York Times, which I'm going to reference, that was written about streaming music and how it's affected the advertising and the listening of the music. In the past decade, streaming services have become extremely popular, and therefore it's been extremely difficult for music artists, independent or signed, to advertise their music to be bought because it's all being streamed or illegally downloaded. The article stated something along the lines of, there is a large barrier between the artist and the public. As of now, it's not very down to earth, and because of that, the artist tends to have illegally downloaded music with their audience, or all of it tends to be streamed, and none of it tends to be bought, which brings a difficulty when it comes to revenue and making a profit off of your music. Overall, the music industry obviously goes a lot more in depth than what I've just told you, but it's a really good way to start basic. This visual right here shows, and you can see in the red, that this is the decline this way of buying music just in the past 5 or so years, starting from about right here, and purple right here is the increase of streaming music. So you can obviously see that there's a large increase in streaming and illegally downloading, and a large decrease in actually buying it so that the artist gets a gain out of it. The music industry is extremely complicated, extremely in-depth, but I hope that what I've told you gives you a little bit more of a basic inside scoop to what the music industry is all about.